Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's uLaw webinar. The topic for today's webinar is the unsung heroes, and we're going to talk about the 4 or 5 features of the uLaw platform that are often, I wouldn't say left behind, but it's not a major focus in a legal office's practice, and we're trying to bring this to the forefront so that you can maximize the efficiency of the platform by using these along with your client management and accounting management. The session today is not accredited for any CPD credits, but we do have our CPD webinar coming up in a couple of weeks. But this is going to be one of those sessions where if you are a current user of the platform or if you are considering a practice management legal accounting software, some of the features and functionalities that you should look for that help maximize, as I mentioned before, the benefit of the platform, your investment in the platform, reducing the amount of redundant work, helping you remember the things that you have to take care of, like task management. And of course, we're going to talk about these 4 and maybe a 5th element of the platform that surrounds and extends the key capabilities around client management and accounts management in a very compliant manner. Okay, so the title for today's topic, once again, is The Unsung Heroes. We're going to talk about the dashboard, contacts, the Quickview, and the calendar aspect of the platform. Okay, so like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has the specific agenda, and I'll see if we can cover this in less than an hour because it's not a CPD session. I want to be mindful of your time. As long as I can cover this within the stipulated time, I'll ensure that I'm giving you enough leeway to ask questions if you may have at the end of the session as well. So as part of the agenda, certainly want to talk about the dashboard, want to understand better about the contact management beyond client matter management. We want to specifically talk about managing contacts, which are individuals or businesses that your business or your legal firm comes to contact with, and the contacts may or may not be your client or your clientele. It could be of different nature of scope. It could be your ghost clients, could be representatives, and could be various other parties that may be involved within a matter as well. And or it could also be vendors that you deal with to make payments to and who you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So uLaw allows you to manage all of this information, almost like your Rolodex, if you will, within the platform. And for legal requirements, we're able to repurpose those contact information as additional parties. For vendor management, we make it easier for you to make payments to those vendors by not remembering them every time, just to overall making the contact management simpler. We then want to talk about the calendar, which is just a simpler representation of your time and schedule, both from a legal standpoint and or your personal standpoint. So if you're, for example, if today between 2 to 3 p.m., if we're covering the CPD or this webinar session, and if it's your personal time that you're spending, you are able to block that in the calendar so that others in your firm don't block you for any client-related conversations. So you can manage both matter-related and non-matter-related scheduling within the uLaw platform, and we'll showcase to you in the calendar as to how you can view that. And at the end of the day, the reason for us to do this webinar and the reason for us to showcase this is the platform uLaw has been in business now for over 12 years. What we do best is with regards to our compliance, allowing our customers, legal practitioners and our customers to better manage their time by ensuring that they have a singular platform where they can store all their information and also retrieve the information depending on the nature of what that requirement is, whether it's for your own personal hygiene check of your accounts or your matters, your clients, or if it's an audit-related question around ledgers and journals. We are able to provide you through a singular platform all of this information. But the fundamental basics of us being able to facilitate all of that cannot be done without the use of these key feature functionalities within the product, and that's why we want to ensure that you are able to understand how these features work and function so that you're able to, again, capitalize best practices that you can put together within your practice to get the best bang for your buck. Okay, so I'm not going to beat around the bush too often. I'm going to spend just maybe a couple of minutes to talk about these features, functionalities, and if you're already using them, that's fantastic. Maybe there's something new you learn with every webinar. But then once I've been able to walk you through what you should expect with these features, functionalities, I really want to, dive straight into the platform itself and make this more of a demonstration of these features rather than me talking about it. So typically in our CPD sessions, you'd see that I'm mostly talking through concepts and maybe have some spare time at the end to demonstrate that. But in today's webinar, let's kind of reverse roles here. So I apologize, but there was a question around CPD. Today's session, unfortunately, is not a CPD session. We want to be prudent about that. You are able to visit our YouTube channel and search up CPD webinars, and at any given time, you're able to consume these CPD webinars by watching them completely and then tracking them as part of your Law Society's requirements. Okay, but if you go to info.uLawPractice.com/webinars, you're also able to understand. So let me just take a quick second here and just quickly change gears. So if you look at info.uLawPractice.com/webinar, and you can bookmark this, we pretty much have a list of all of the upcoming webinars, and you can subscribe to this, and we can email you regular notifications of what these sessions are, and we clearly notify the ones that are CPD in nature, and so hopefully that helps. Okay. Now, so from a dashboard standpoint, it's pretty much the landing page within the uLaw platform. Okay. Now, each and every legal firm can completely customize the experience of the uLaw platform using our settings, and you can pretty much personalize almost every single screen or feature functionality that you see on the left-hand side here, from the dashboard till your in terms of accounts, in terms of your contacts, Quickview, etc. So you're able to use our settings to personalize this experience. Not only on a legal firm basis, there are certain cases where the roles that are utilizing the uLaw platform can customize it based on their specific need. If, for example, in a legal firm, it's the front office or maybe the clerk that's pretty much using the software to do all of the data entry, he or she is able to, or they are able to customize the overall look, feel, functionality that they see within the dashboard that's more pertaining to their role. For example, most recently modified contacts, most recently modified matters. Maybe they are not necessarily, their role does not need them to know outstanding invoices or invoice pending matters. Maybe that's part of the legal practitioner's role to be able to invoice them. So you can personalize, bottom line, the whole dashboard experience. And we allow up to 6 to 7 different dashboard elements today, and we're continuing to add to that list, and I'll showcase what those are. But just to give you a quick snapshot, simple things such as upcoming to-dos, which are most like task management, upcoming events, which are mostly dockets within matters, and one of my personal favorite is the invoice pending matter, which is a quick reminder of all of the matters that you're working on, you've put the effort or have docketed, dispersed within that matter, but haven't moved to the next stage, which is really about invoicing that client so that you can quickly recover or make the money by generating that invoice. So the invoice pending matters, as the name sounds, pretty much gives you all the matters that are pending invoice to be raised. Now you can navigate through the dashboard. You can maneuver through the dashboard, rearrange these widgets, as we call them, on the dashboard, however you like. And we'll definitely see how that's done once we get into the demo mode. Okay. And the last thing that I want to add, a new feature functionality within the dashboard is, in the past, these were mostly information that was provided as a reminder, and it was pretty much static. But what we've done is we've evolved the dashboard to kind of almost be your singular panel view of information, and it's now dynamic in nature, where you can, right from the dashboard, if there's an invoice pending matter, you don't even have to go to the matter to generate that invoice. You can click that invoice pending matter file and generate the invoice right from your dashboard, thereby reducing the time and effort in overall practice management efficiencies. Okay. Then comes our contact management, and I definitely want to stress the importance of understanding how the contact management feature functionality is built within the uLaw platform. Now, when we first evolved the platform and we started to write features, functionalities, add these features, it was a combination of us understanding the needs of legal firms day to day, as well as feedback that we received from our clientele. And that clientele is growing, and we're serving thousands of legal practitioners and firms across the country. And just like all platforms that you see today that are cloud-based, we continue to evolve the feature set of our overall platform, and we've done quite a bit of that within our contact management. The contact management feature within the platform, as I mentioned earlier, not only allows you to manage or the more commonly found contacts for your firm, which are your clients. So it's easy to add a new client, for example, into the contact management. Retrieve the client when you need information. Create a matter or a file for that client once you've done your due diligence, conflict searches, and of course, allows you to continue from there on to docket and disperse. But beyond clients, there could be the possibility of your firm coming to contact with other types of individuals, businesses that you deal with as a firm. One of the more recent improvements in this is the ability for you to associate contacts as additional parties within files or matters. Whether it's a criminal matter, and if you, for example, if there's a witness to an accident, or maybe there's a police officer, maybe there's a health practitioner who's involved. There's two major reasons why we do that. Associating contacts to additional parties. One, makes your conflict search that much more comprehensive, right? So the next time you have a John or a John Smith or Jim Smith that you're adding as a client, knowing the various different roles of such similar names beyond clientele, maybe there was a witness, maybe it was a neighbor, and if you've added them as parties within files, we're able to show that to you, saying there's actually a John Smith, not a client, but you've dealt with them in a different matter. Okay, that's very powerful, gives you a very comprehensive outlook of the overall information related to contacts. The second reason why we've started to evolve this relationship between the contacts and the additional parties is within the uLaw platform, at no extra cost, we have a court forms engine, basically a forms engine, and we've, of course, explored the possibility of auto-populating or auto-filling court forms. And we started with the province of Ontario, and we've run that for several years now. And we're continuing to change these forms as they change on the main websites. But now we've evolved it to the next set of provinces. So we're starting to do British Columbia, followed by Alberta, New Brunswick, so on and so forth. And these instances, especially for our clients in Ontario, they've enjoyed the ability to just simply add a contact from our contact database. It's a one-time that you enter this information, and now you can repurpose that contact information across several matters and associate these contacts as parties within that matter, as you feel fit, as it's fit for that matter. So imagine a case of a representative. So let's say you come across this this opponent representative legal practitioner on a regular basis. And if you're dealing with a lot of small claims or LATB or any other matter, family matter, wherever they're asking you for the information of the opponent's representative, typically what you would have to do is download that file or that PDF or Word document and start filling that information every time. And that could possibly lead to manual errors, revisiting the document, etc. Rather, if you were to store that information once within the uLaw contact database, you can simply just add them as a party every time within the new file, and automatically uLaw would ensure that the information required within those documents are pre-populated with the relevant data. If, for example, the contact information changes, you only have a single place where you have to change it, and it gets automatically reflected across all matters. Right? So simple things like that. So that would be your biggest takeaway with respect to contact management. The third, maybe a component that we're starting to see our customers utilize today is what we call as group management. So for your own ease of understanding where your customers are coming from or various different types, you can create your own groups within the uLaw platform, and you can, as the name sounds, group your contacts beyond the major classifications that we already give you. Okay? So we've done the dashboard. We're going to talk about contact management, and the Quickview is yet another screen or feature in the platform that we often find isn't that widely used because it's simpler to sometimes search specific to what you need. But if you're looking for matter or file-related information, and if you're looking for matters from several previous years, whether they're archived or closed for relevance, or if you're just doing a conflict search and you really need to understand a particular file in further detail, the Quickview allows you to really search based on any keyword that you have with regards to that matter. So if you know if it's a criminal matter, you can just search criminal. If you know the actual name, you can search by the name. And if you know the file number, you can search by the file number as well. So it's pretty much a free text, or it's a search based on free text, allows you to really get a better appreciation of the matter. We give you information like as to when was last modified. Of course, within the matters, we allow you to categorize your matters as open, closed, and archived. So we allow you to do the same thing with the Quickview as well. Okay? And there are some interesting reports that we've plugged in to the screen. And the next major feature that we're going to certainly cover today is the calendar. Now, we of course have clients that use their own calendaring system. So if you have a Gmail account, you of course have your own Google Calendar. If you have an Outlook, you may have your own Microsoft calendaring system. You may have other external calendars that you're using. Some of them just function using the calendars on their phone. And uLaw allows you to synchronize any information that you store within the uLaw platform with all of these several external calendars, if you will. All you have to do is download an iCal, which is the international standard for calendar system, and allows you to take information out of from uLaw and synchronize it with, for example, your Google Calendar. But today, mostly what people use the uLaw calendar for, beyond individual needs, is if this is a growing firm, and if you're starting to see that multiple individuals are contributing towards a matter, the calendaring system pretty much captures these individuals' time dockets, converts them, of course, into very interesting reports that I'll show you within the calendar system, possibly can download them as timesheets, revenue timesheets, client-based timesheets, etc. So if you're storing your docket information within the uLaw platform, which you're naturally doing if you're doing matters, then every docket, once entered into the matter, gets reflected in the calendar as a time cal. And if you are a growing firm, you are now able to color code the different individuals' calendar time. So if it's the assistant or a core worker or the main user of the platform, you can all designate your own coloring system within our settings, making it easy for the law clerk or maybe the assistant to understand time availability based on the dockets that you've entered or personal time that you've entered into the system. So, as I mentioned before, both matter-related and personal time calendaring can very much be made available within the uLaw platform. And one step ahead, if you do have the uLaw app, both which is available on iOS and Android, you can now synchronize the uLaw calendar with the uLaw app, which then allows you to synchronize it with your individual device, whether it's iOS or Android. Okay? And that's pretty much it in terms of me rambling away. I'll take a quick pause to check if there's any questions that you have with regards to these four major, as we call them, unsung heroes within the platform before I prepare to move into the demonstration of these features. Any questions at all? Please feel free to use the chat window to ask any of those questions. Okay. So, yeah, at any time, please do start to use the chat window and ask me any questions. I'm going to continue my session by logging into my Playground account. I'm always using my famous practitioner, Roger Moore, and hence uLawPractice. Okay, there's a question around core forms automation. The core forms automation is a feature that's available within the platform. If you haven't seen it yet, we encourage you to. So this is a two-factor authorization or authentication that allows us to ensure that the data is safeguarded. So you can either email yourself a code or just text a code to a phone number that's associated with the uLaw account. For sure, I'll make it a point to walk you through how the core forms automation works. So it's kind of a small deviation from today's topic. So I'm just going to click text code. That information gets sent over. So we generate a 4-digit code that's unique and time-based. We would enter that and hit submit, and then we validate that it's truly you. Okay? Okay. So just to quickly answer that question around core forms, so if you go into any file or matters, rather, what you see at the top right here are the core forms. Just stop the dashboard real quick. Yeah, so what you see here are the core forms. So when you're generating, let's say, small claims, LATB, family matters, criminal, you would use the additional parties, which is where, as I mentioned, you can add a party, search up that information, and let's say this is a small claims matter. This is where it comes in handy to create the contact and then associate it as, let's say, a defendant. And then you can search for that. And then associate that contact that you've, and the prerequisite is that you've already saved that contact before. And then if you go into a court form and let's say you're doing a plaintiff's claim, uLaw smart enough to know that if there's a defendant, then you're the plaintiff. And when you download that court form, we ensure that these court forms are up to date. Typically, we take about 2 weeks SLA from the time it's been updated in the court form site to ours. and we generate it to you depending on whether it's a small claims or if it's any other document. Okay? So here it is. So a lot of information is pre-populated, including the defendant's information, Stefan Wisburn. Okay, so that's really where it comes in handy. And that's where the court forms are. So I hope that helps explain it. Alrighty, so I'll start with the dashboard, and you can see here now, if you notice in my dashboard that I have here, I have these 4 rectangles, or they could become squares at any time, depending on the number of widgets that you have. They're called the dashboard widgets. And currently, this particular user has 4 of those widgets because they feel that's enough. That's all they need to draw their focus and attention to. They have a weather, so they really are interested in the weather. The user is interested in the most recently modified contacts, so maybe the top 15, 20 contacts that they need. And you can limit whether it's in the last 30 days, 15 days, forever. You can have all of that information. So in the last 30 days, here are all my contacts. And if they needed to get into the contact, click on the contact, they just want to understand high-level information about that contact, click on the contact card. And you can see for this particular client, Adam, you have several matters. In fact, you have 4 matters, and one of them is an invoice pending. For the previous matters, they've been fully invoiced. There's about $1,090 that you made. And if you wanted to drill further into that, you can do from that. If you needed to generate that invoice, you can do that from the invoice pending matters as well. So again, the dashboard is just a fast and easy way to understand, first represent the top information that you need, and then drill further down into that information based on the context. Very similar, recently modified matters. So personal injury is a more recently matter that you worked on as early as 18th of August. If you click it, it takes you right into the file itself. If you wanted to take a deeper dive into the matter itself, you can go straight into the matter, and you can see there's about $5,000 in trust receipt. There is an initial billable time of 1 hour and 12 minutes, another flat rate of about $100. There's a disbursement. You can see that there's a retainer, multiple disbursements. It's all adding up to about $480. And you can also see that these invoices have been generated. In fact, 2 of them have been generated. So again, going straight into the matter and understanding the matter better. But just like our contacts, and this is a new feature set within the platform, if you wanted to understand all of that, if you needed to understand all of that in a single snapshot, you can click on this little matter card. And that pretty much gives you all of that information in a single snapshot. It tells you that you've generated 2 invoices for this client, or this matter rather, $5,000 in trust. You've already withdrawn $1,135. It gives you all the top information, right? That's the balance. That's the invoice that's been paid. So essentially, you had $5,000 in trust. You generated an invoice for $1,135. You've done your trust transfer. Okay? It's all good. And then there's multiple news sections here. The 4th is another news around COVID. Now, I'll draw your attention to our settings, which is in the top right corner here. And you utilize the settings to pretty much personalize almost every screen in the platform. Now, if I go into my dashboard, I can change, of course, header colors and all that jazzy stuff, the range of events, anything over a week. And we have a full-fledged, close to big data capability, a lot of deep dive analytics. You can decide how many of those analytical items or widgets you need. But here is where we allow you to have a maximum of 6 dashboard widgets, and you can change and rearrange it however you like. So you could say, I want the modified contacts first, I want the modified matters next, and then I'll have my new section on Weather Canada, and then another new section on COVID, and in fact, I want the invoice pending matter. Okay, and if you wanted a full house, you can also say, all right, let me say I want upcoming events. And once I save this information, if I go back into my dashboard, you're going to notice that that 4 widget dashboard just changed into a 6 widget dashboard that's been rearranged. So you have the 2 news, the contacts matters, and you have this new widget called the invoice pending matter. Okay. So if you notice, there's this matter that on July 28th, court visit, and it's essentially for this file AJ. If I click on this invoice pending matter card, I can quickly generate a preview. So if you really want to understand, okay, yes, I haven't generated an invoice, but I want to understand why and the details of it, I can go straight into not even getting into the matter, right from the dashboard. You know right away that there's been an email correspondence, and maybe this is someone else in the office, right, for about $40. And here's the running invoice, so you know what's happened with this matter so far. You have received a client payment, and you've got some money in trust. Okay? And there you go. So there's about $49.60 worth of invoicing that you can do right away. And if you decide to invoice, you can even skip the preview and go straight into invoicing right from the dashboard. If you've determined, yes, it's about time I'm going to make this invoice as dynamic as possible, as and when it happens. And as soon as you've generated that invoice, you're going to notice example, here's the invoice. And if you go into that particular matter, you notice that the status has now changed to no pending invoice. And here's that invoice that we just generated. Okay? Okay. So you have your most recently modified contacts, matters, and pending matters. So you can rearrange these dashboard items. But the main attention and focus is now these elements are dynamic enough that you don't even have to go to the contact or the matters page to take actions. You can take those actions right from the dashboard screen itself. I'll move next into my contacts. And as I quickly demonstrated our additional party association, this is the prerequisite. This is the starting point. Right? So here's where you have your contacts, and you can quickly notice there's about 1,200 contacts in my database. So I have an add new contact, and as the name sounds, there are various different types of contacts. You have clients, you have friends, vendors, plaintiffs, representatives. So we give you, when you first get started with the uLaw platform, we give you up to the witnesses, the top 10 groups where you can already store the contacts under. And you can see after that, our clients have gone ahead and created their own set of groups like web leads, corporate, etc., right? Employers, employees. So you can have a single contact across multiple groups, whatever makes it easy for you to search for that information and retrieve it fast. So if you're looking for representatives, you can either search for their names. So let's have a look at it. Let's say there's Gerald Goofy, right? So typically you can come in and use the search, just search in Goofy, and there's the two contacts. And if you go to their group, you would notice they are under both clients and representatives. That doesn't make sense, but this is a test database. But if you wanted to understand who are all your representatives, you go right into the representative section. And let's say you have the same contact, Gerald Goofy. And it made sense, right? There's no way there's going to be a client and a representative, or maybe there is. But let's say I wanted to remove them from my representatives. I'll just click on Delete from Representatives group. And now it's saving that new information. And you're going to notice the representatives group reduced by 1 to 21. There you go. That contact is no more in my representatives group. It still is in my clients group. So if I, again, search up Goofy, the person is still in my contact database, but is grouped under my clients. Okay, so you can add new groups, you can delete existing groups, you can even merge groups. So if you have web leads and leads, internet leads as two different groups, you can merge them into one if you like. And of course, associate a single contact under multiple groups. And saving information is pretty straightforward. You just say add new contact. And let's say if it's a client, of course, this becomes your client intake form, pretty much your starting point of taking that information in before you start a matter for this client, right? So you can add that information. You can have multiple addresses if you like for that same contact, or maybe not. Phone number, email, and a source of contact so that you know how did Mr. Narayanan get to know you, Roger Moore, as the legal practitioner. Okay. So this is the most straightforward use case of using the contacts. The most widely used use case of using the contact screen is to add that initial client. Of course, we've improved upon this as well. We make it very easy through the client portal to be able to send emails to your prospective client, let's put it that way, and send them some basic information for you to capture. So instead of doing the client intake, you can actually send your prospective client an email with a form that they can fill out. And that's another unique, modern way in which you're able to accept information. So within contacts, of course, you can do your conflict check if it's a client. And if you've come across someone like Pradeep in the past, it would bring it up. If you've created a matter for someone like Pradeep, it would bring it up as well. Even if you've entered the name Pradeep in a docket, it would still bring it up. If you've associated Pradeep as a party within another matter, then uLaw would also bring that up, saying here are all different instances in which there's a possibility of a similar name association. Of course, you, as a legal practitioner, will make an informed decision whether it's smart to move forward with creating that matter or not. We've covered this in our previous webinars around document generation, but right under contact, of course, you can generate many different important documents, both compliant and non-compliant in nature, even things such as envelopes or envelopes. So if you have a deal, various different sizes. there you go. If you're sending an envelope or envelope to your client, you can leave that on your printer, and then this would print this embossed right on top of it. Here's the address that's pre-populated. So just merges all the information contextually. Same thing with labels. And this is compliant with your Avery label printing. And you can print one or many. And here is my conflict search. You can see there's a couple of Narayanans in the database, or maybe there's just one. There's a Ray from the word Ray in Narayanan. And it's date stamped, which is an important compliant need. Okay? There are no first name conflicts. And right from here, you can move ahead to create that matter. So this is important because you can't create a new matter from the matters page. You have to navigate from the contacts. It's only from here that you're able to create the first matter for a client. So for Pradeep, let's say this is a real estate matter. Okay, you would do it from the contacts. But once you have created a single matter for a client, and if you wanted to create the second matter, you don't go into contacts, you can come right under matter and essentially create a new matter for Pradeep. And this could be something else. Okay. So real estate and wills. You can have multiple matters. So the second matter is created under the matter screen, but the first matter for a prospective or a new client is created from the contact screen only. So that's an important component to keep in mind. Okay, so the ability for you to group, the ability for you to create new contacts, whether that's client or if it's not. And if Pradeep, for whatever reason, gives you all of the information and really does not come back with the retainer, you can add him to the ghost clients. Right, so you're going to see this count increase to 19. You've just made Pradeep a ghost client, and of course you would wait till Pradeep comes back with a retainer to start engaging your firm. Okay? So if I go to ghost clients, you have to see Pradeep there. So there you go. So I hope that made sense from a contact perspective. Of course, there's quite a few documents that you can generate as well. I'll just take you into one, which is the source of contact, but I don't want to bore you too much with that. This is probably one of the most significant documents. Gives you a good spread of where you're getting your clients from. I've covered this in some of my previous webinars. It tells you where your marketing is working. It also is a compliant document so that you could show the auditor the different varieties of ways in which you're getting customers, and you're just not a referral source of that. Okay? It also allows you to keep your data sanity at a high check. So for example, if you know there's Naveen, a couple of Naveens that you've not yet categorized, you go and search up that name and just make your data that much stronger. Okay? So there's Naveen Kumar. You can edit that information. Just go ahead and add what the source is if you know it, and constantly keep the data updated. Now I'll move into the Quickview, which was kind of our next feature set that we were going to look at. And as you can see, by default, we have it set to only show you the active matters. So all the matters that you're currently working on have been marked as active. In a matter, for example, let's take the Pradeep Narayan and Wills matter. By default, you could see this is active. But now you can mark this as closed or archived. This is just a logical categorization so that your firm has a better control over the nature of the matter, so that your focus is mostly on the active matters. If I go back into Quickview, you're not going to see this Wills matter in a second or so. If I go into my archived, There you go. You see Pradeep Narayanan right at the top. I go into active. You're not going to see the wills matter anymore. You're only seeing the purchase of the condo. Okay, so it keeps your focus on the active files, so your better utilization of your time. And within the quick view, you can jump into any matter at any time. So if you're looking at a speeding ticket matter, click on it. It takes you right first into the basic information. So before you even get into the matter, you can see if it makes sense to get into it. And if you do want to still go into the matter, just click on Go to Matter. Okay. So here's quick view. I'm going to go back again. So let's say you don't have any of this information. You just know that there's the party by the name Ginny. And you just type in that. And there you go. All of the matters that has Ginny in it, even with the client name, the title, wherever possible, you could say, oh, it was Danny, it was this Ginny matter. Okay. Now, sometimes you might actually know the file number itself. And let's say this is a file with the name JR in it. You can just say JR. And it brings up all the matters that starts with JR. Because typically the uLaw file numbering system is the first name, first alphabet, last name, first alphabet. So if it was John Robinson, then you know that it's JR. Or if it's AB, so on and so forth. Sometimes you could also have numbering systems from a previous system of record, right? So for example, if this was all matters in the year 2016, and let's say that's how your numbering system is, you can type that in as well. Okay. So there's many different ways that you can actually search within the quick view. So here are all the matters in the year 2020. What's interesting is you can also export this information. So specific to the search, all the matters, or a date range that has been created in. So you can create a quick record set of all the matters that are being created in the month of July. Right from first till date. Essentially, you can download that. Sometimes auditors may just ask you for a list of active matters. And I mentioned about some interesting reports. Of course, the most important that I would like to show you is the work in progress and the work in progress disbursement. I've covered that in my previous webinar that specifically talks about our reporting capabilities. So again, don't want to bore you with this, but only because we're in the screen, I might as well show you that. Work in progress disbursement is a very critical component within a legal firm because that's your money to be recovered at the earliest, especially if you've spent the money in advance and you don't have a retainer component to it, then that's your money that you have to recover as soon as possible. So the work in progress disbursement is the quick list of all the matters for which you've already spent the money but haven't yet recovered it through that invoice. So by generating this WIP on a regular basis, you can stay very much on top of your recoverables. You can see there's no work in progress for this date range. Fantastic. And nothing here as well. So that's awesome. Okay? So you're up to date. And that's pretty much Quickview. And you can see how they're all intertwined, eh? Right from Quickview, you're able to move into matters. Right from contacts, you can go right into the matter as well. From the dashboard, you can go both into the contacts as well as the matters. And, pretty much that. You can even search for matters right from, of course, it makes sense. You can search for matters within the matters as well. And that's pretty much it. The last thing that I wanted to show you was the calendar. You can see there's the weekly calendar. You could do the monthly. And let's say I can do every Friday. So let's see, I type in I don't know, uLaw webinar maybe. Just wait for the client data to load. And I'll say this is from 2 p.m. for 1 hour, give or take. And I'm not going to add it to a matter. It's not matter related, and it repeats on a weekly basis. And I want to repeat once a week and range and save that information. Okay? So essentially I can block my calendar off for that time period, and this is a personal time. So this is not related to any matter. I think I added it in the wrong date, but you get the idea. So every Sunday I pretty much block this off. I can edit that, and I could say repeat on Friday. Okay? Now, as you can see here, there's a monthly reconciliation. So someone's added at the end of every month, again, a reminder. So here's your every Friday, and someone's added a monthly reconciliation reminder for end of the month. And if you notice here, I can hide the time dockets. And it would show me everything that's personal. Or if I show the time dockets, and let's say I go into a matter, and I add a docket, and let's see, I spend 2 hours. Okay. So that's the individual legal practitioner Roger Moore's 2 hours worth of time on the 20th of August. You can see here that's showing up here right under the Friday afternoon. So if you decide not to show that, you can hide the time dockets, and it takes it away. So some good mixture of, you can click on it and you can see this is Danny Johnson's final closure, and you can edit that information if you like. Okay. Now you can even dock it right from here. So let's say on the 25th, let's say you have a planned activity on the 25th. So you could say court visit, okay, assuming the courts are open, and it's at about 10 a.m. in the morning. You could say, I want to add this to the matter, search up the Ginny Robson matter, or maybe not. There you go, Danny versus Ginny, and save that information. So I can not only docket the current time, I can also docket for future time for planned activities, and that reflects within the calendar as well. It also gets reflected, as you could see in the matter, as a court visit. The last thing I want to show you is the ability for you to generate quite a few reporting capabilities right from calendar. If you haven't done that, again, I covered quite a few of these reporting capabilities in my previous webinar, but just to walk you through this real quick, the top reports that we pretty much highlight in all of our demonstrations is, again, the work in progress for the entire firm, the ability for you to generate timesheets across all employees, by docket range, by invoice, as more importantly also the revenue summary. So if I were to do my client revenue summary for this quarter, I can generate it for this particular quarter. I can also do a timesheet just for time purposes for across employees. Of course, if this is a solo practitioner's firm, then this would just be yourself. But if it's a growing legal firm, then you would see, well, in this case, you have different clients. So for this quarter, you have these 5 different clients, the different billable estimated time and the billable hours, the revenue that's generated. It's pretty straightforward. And if there were multiple individuals that were contributing to this, you would see that split at the bottom. Okay. And with that, that's pretty much everything I wanted to showcase in today's webinar. The last thing that is a new feature that's been added under Calendar is what we call a scratchpad. Now, one is to know which matter you're docketing. Sometimes legal firms don't necessarily know that. They just need a quick, almost a scratchpad or almost like an Excel sheet that tells them what they're working on. And at the end of the day, they associate those tasks to matters or clients. So you can use this as you can add multiple rows, and you could say initial meeting, client intake, then maybe this is a second meeting, or could be another court visit. And you can start a clock right at the minute, or you can just put the billable time right here. Okay, 0.6. And you can continue to do that. And at the end of the day, you can always close this, right? Come back to it, and it still is there till you have cleared it for the day. So you can do this, take your break, come back into Calendar, continue the scratchpad. And when you're ready at the end of the day, you can now take the action, and you can say add new event, or you can say complete. Okay. If you're adding a new event, you could say, alrighty, this goes to my Danny Johnson matter. Now you've just associated that scratchpad docket to a specific matter. And you can do that for all of those individual elements across different matters as well. So again, relatively new feature that does not need you to be in a matter to go and docket one at a time. You can do multiple dockets across matters from a single screen. Okay? So definitely we're at the top of the hour, and I certainly want to be mindful of your time. But again, essentially wanted to showcase to you as to how these 3 or 4 important feature set, dashboards, contacts, and the calendar integrate to pretty much highlight the core capacity of the client matter, invoice, and account management. And I will open the floors for any questions that you may have. We certainly have shared with you a quick survey, so feel free to give us your feedback on these webinars and how they're helping you, and hopefully newer topics that you can help us come up with, and we'll continue to add to the list. So I'll open the floors for any questions, and thank you for your time very much, and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar, but I'll definitely wait for answering any questions. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, thank you very much for your time. look forward to seeing you in our next webinar next Friday at 2 p.m. Thank you.